Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm Andre, and this is Dave.
Howdy.
Yeah, and we just want to say, thanks to James and Stephen for believing in us, and thanks for letting us know by posting on your website that we were giving a talk here. So Dave and I realized yesterday, after we flew for 10 hours from Vancouver, that we were giving a talk. After many beers. So we put together this great talk, which I can assure you won't have any pitch in it.
Okay, so a lot of the talk actually, luckily, has already been done by Greg. So he's sort of explained to you a bit about PhoneGap and how he uses PhoneGap for the Untapped app, which is totally awesome. So that cuts out like 5 minutes right there. The other really good thing about PhoneGap, or interesting use of PhoneGap, is Wikipedia. So a lot of people always ask, like, oh, well, PhoneGap's great and all, but like, who really uses PhoneGap? Well, Wikipedia uses PhoneGap, and they actually just released their application for Android 2 weeks ago, and you can see a little graph here on the bottom right, and they have over 500,000 installs in just two weeks or thereabouts, and they have a great rating of over 4.5 stars. So this is all using web technologies as a native app on mobile devices. And so they can actually take this code that they have to make this app that's running on Android here, and they took a day, and they were able to get it running on iOS devices as well. So super compelling from cost saving, and well, Greg already talked about all the great pros and or cons of using this approach. So Wikipedia is a great example of an app that does use PhoneGap. So the other speaker, of course, this morning, Matt from Bitly, he sort of stole our idea for this slide. So PhoneGap, essentially, in a nutshell, as Greg mentioned, is a kitten in a chicken suit. So the kitten is actually HTML, JavaScript, CSS. So you just make a web app, pretty much, that runs on the web as a normal web app does. So like, for example, Twitter mobile app is a good example. You could pretty much take that and then put a chicken suit on it and run it on a phone as a native app. So you get store distribution, you get access to device APIs, you get all those benefits of a native app, but you build it with a cute little fuzzy chicken inside. Or sorry, a cute little fuzzy kitten inside.
All right, so a little bit about how PhoneGap started. Dave and I came up with this grand plan to build the de facto standard framework for mobile developers. Well, that's what we'd like to believe, and that's what people, when they're starting out their businesses, would like to say they planned. Really, I was at an iPhone dev camp with a fellow by the name of Brock and Rob from, they were working at Natobi at the time, and another guy from Kodak, Eric, I believe, and we thought, hey, I wonder if we could get APIs from the iPhone SDK, so like from the native Objective-C, passing into some kind of WebKit instance so we could write HTML and JavaScript apps that could talk to those cool APIs like the camera and contacts, geolocation. We got accelerometer working and thought, hey, that's pretty cool. We demoed it at iPhone Dev Camp, which was hosted at Adobe. No one really knew what was going on, and they didn't think it was that impressive because we just had a ball dropping on the screen, but we thought it was pretty neat because we can now reuse our HTML and JavaScript skills. And it turns out a lot of other people over time thought that was great too because you didn't have to learn Objective-C or Java and whatnot. And it was free and open source from the beginning. So as soon as we wrote the first line of code, it was up on GitHub. We had MIT license. We started a Google mailing list so we'd get people involved right away. And I think while we were at this camp here at Adobe, it's actually kind of funny here because Brock is sitting here surrounded by beers, probably getting a little bit drunk and hacking on PhoneGap code at the Adobe office. And you can see behind him Adobe's, all those plaques, those are Adobe patents. So, that's what they thought was important, and we thought beer and hacking was important, so, things change. So yeah, it really kind of took off from there, and then guys back at the office like Dave got it working on BlackBerry, and then on Android, and then that's really what fueled the cross-platform part of it. At first we just thought, hey, this would be cool if we could write iPhone apps with JavaScript, but then cross-platform became really important with the rise of Android. That was hard to convince people of 3 years ago that cross-platform would be important. They thought, Apple was the only platform that mattered, but we've clearly seen that change over the last few years. Another part of interacting with our community was really about, I see Steven squinting at that slide. I'm not sure what photo he's squinting at. They're both kind of hard to take. The fellow on the left there is Brian LaRue, one of the main people behind the PhoneGap project, both in terms of the vision, but also the community and going out there. You know, we really engaged with the JavaScript community and the web community kind of the way they wanted to, you know, silly jokes, lots of beer, goofing around, not taking ourselves too seriously. But that kind of, I think, genuine and authentic interaction with the community is really what built PhoneGap up to be what it is today. And we had, you know, lots of competitors. People would actually just take PhoneGap and rename it and try to license it, or put it under GPL with a commercial license, or just straight up commercial license, or change all the API names, and then, you know, it was this new platform for HTML5 developers. But really, people saw through all that. The community helped us. They called people out on it. And early on, actually, Apple banned PhoneGap from being in the App Store. And the community really, there was a big outcry about that, and it ended up being, you know, pretty much the best press event we had early on and drove tons of traffic. So I think just kind of being really genuine and authentic with the community helped us a lot for that kind of growth phase, and still now. So, you know, going from that, and now we're, you know, it's growing, we want more people on board, so I think we've moved into kind of more formal way of working with open source, maybe.
Yeah, and I think the open source aspect of PhoneGap is, you know, we can't really underscore how important that was to the growth of the platform, for sure. So in particular, we started out as MIT BSD, like Andre said, so completely free and open source. There were competitors at the time as well who were more closed source and didn't have as liberal of a license. And they actually eventually came to the conclusion that, oh, it is a good thing to have an Apache sort of license or MIT license. And they're actually all now just as open as PhoneGap. So that was really what gave us a big foothold in the early days. And because of that open sourceness, and of course now we've contributed to the Apache Software Foundation to ensure the growth and governance of the project continues on into the future, which is really exciting. And that's actually meant that a lot of other companies have felt very comfortable now contributing as well. So companies like RIM, Microsoft, they're sort of recent contributors, Salesforce.com, and of course the biggest contributor and or partner from the whole, you know, for about a year and a half now, I think, has been IBM. So they actually use PhoneGap in their professional services work, as well as Lotus Notes, some sort of Lotus product somewhere in there. Yeah, one of those 20, 50 Lotus products. So they actually distribute it in like their some sort of SDK, emerging technology something. Yeah, right. So IBM has been a fantastic partner, though, and they've done a whole bunch of work on the framework. And Andre will talk a bit more about that business side of it, but they've been really good. And sort of to take a look at some of our competitors, actually. So this is just a graph. I thought we need at least one graph in here, right? Of Google Trends data. So the top is search volume index. Of course, the blue line is PhoneGap, and then a couple other competitors there. And the bottom part here on the Google Trends is the news reference volume. So you can see our nearest competitor does very well in news reference volume. So they got a great marketing department, putting out lots of press releases. You know, just sort of at the end there, we have a little bit of news reference. I'm assuming that's from the Adobe acquisition. But over all of time of the history of the project, the search volume for PhoneGap has been very strong compared to the news reference volume. So I think this also goes to show just how important the community and the open source side of it has been, rather than just putting out press releases and making lots of noise in sort of artificial ways.
So, of course, you know, what's the business part of it? I think that's what was in our talk title that James gave to us. You can see down in the bottom left there is Andrew Lunny, the lead developer of PhoneGap Build, and he looks like he's pretty much blind drunk at this point. Some local concert. I'm sure he showed up promptly to work the next day around noon to continue writing code for PhoneGap Build. So, you know, really our business model was the vision was always to build PhoneGap Build, which is this hosted service that accompanies PhoneGap And essentially what it does, it takes away the problem of compiling for all these different platforms. So instead of going out and downloading the iOS SDK and then the Android SDK and then BlackBerry SDK, configuring all these things, clicking compile and doing the code signing, with PhoneGap Build, you just upload your HTML and JavaScript, it compiles it all for you, gives you back App Store ready code signed apps.
That's the sales pitch, right?
Yeah, that was it. We're done. But what we did to get there was really we bootstrapped the business. So it was consulting work, support, these kind of boring parts of the business. You know, no VC will give you funding for that because it's not a very exciting business to scale, which we agreed upon with the VCs. But that was about the only thing we agreed upon with the VCs. You know, we didn't have a business model baked in that was good enough for them, but really support and services around an open source project, if you have a popular open source project, is pretty much a no-brainer. I mean, people will just start calling you and asking you for support or work or to build something with your app. It really wasn't that hard. We didn't need to hire a marketing department or salespeople to get that off the ground anyway. So I think from a bootstrapping kind of business model, it's amazing. You know, our company went from 8 people or 9 people in 2008 to 25 when we were acquired by Adobe last fall. So yeah, that was good growth, and we were turning down lots of contracts towards the end. And it also changed from a business that was all web app consulting to exclusively mobile and all on PhoneGap. Just by being involved in the community, you know, we weren't doing any hard sells, we weren't like sales presentations on PhoneGap.com or anything like that. It was just about being genuine in the community, and then the people paying attention to that space, you know, who knew that we were good people to work with. So I think, yeah, having that platform as a service or software as a service through PhoneGap Build at Adobe is going to be really exciting to see, you know, where we can take that and solving more problems for developers in the cloud. So compiling is just one, debugging something else we're working on, and all sorts of other cool things. So that was kind of the, you know, we had the boring stuff up front with the really exciting part in the end. But still, you know, we'd explain that to people, and people would constantly ask us, yeah, but you're open source, what's your business model? As if, you know, charging developers $50 or $99 to develop, you know, or to download PhoneGap would have, you know, really had it take off, and I just can't see that working. But then, you know, ultimately, our business model worked out. We got acquired by Adobe. It was great for the founders of the company, great for all the employees. You know, we're winding down our consulting projects now and all PhoneGap all the time. So our open source contributions are going to go up. Our work on cloud services around HTML5 and JavaScript and PhoneGap are going to go up. So yeah, it's win-win. So unless I missed anything, I think it's time for lunch and beer.